Before I start this video, do not forget to comment anything. Your comment make my video go further on the platform. Loid was an orphan who had been adopted by the strongest S-rank wizard and eventually became an adventurer. However, his party dismissed him, labeling him a useless support mage. What none of them knew, except his teacher, was that Loid was actually the chosen hero destined to defeat the Demon King. When Loid was a child, his hometown had been destroyed during the Demon King's attack. He survived, and it was then that an S-rank adventurer wizard named Merlin found him. She, too, seemed to have lost someone dear in that same battle, and in an attempt to cope with her grief, she chose to adopt Loid. Upon bringing him home, the very first thing Merlin did was create a fireball out of thin air. She told Loid, who stood there wide-eyed, that if he couldn't produce fire using magic by evening, he wouldn't be allowed to eat dinner. Determined, Loid kept practicing until he finally managed to create a flame. Overjoyed, he ran to show Merlin, who sarcastically told him he did a decent job before extinguishing the small flame. She roasted him with a burst of heat, saying he still had a long way to go. Shortly after, Merlin demonstrated how to summon water from the ground. Loid managed to replicate the spell on his first try. Rather than praise him, Merlin responded with sarcasm once again and drenched him in water. She explained that this was the proper way to do it. As days passed, Loid learned new kinds of magic. Still, Merlin remained perpetually unsatisfied. Even when he sculpted an intricate ice statue of her, she used magic to animate the sculpture, which then grabbed him. She expanded the statue's size and criticized him for lacking skill, eventually breaking it down and causing Loid to fall to the ground. Trusting her completely, Loid believed her words and promised to work even harder to improve. A few days later, Merlin came down with a terrible hangover. Loid used his magic to heal her. As soon as she woke up, she hugged him tightly and thanked him. Yet the very next moment, she dragged him outside for more magic practice. Time passed, and one night Merlin sat in her study poring over ancient texts with a troubled and pained expression. Loid walked in to call her for dinner, and as she stood up, she accidentally dropped one of the books. When Loid bent down to help her pick it up and touch the book, all of its magical knowledge suddenly surged into his brain. The shock caused him to collapse. Merlin panicked upon seeing this. Loid had just absorbed an ancient magic spell simply by touching the book. It was a clear sign that he had the potential to become the chosen one. The discovery stirred up painful memories for Merlin, who feared Loid might repeat the same tragic mistakes she once witnessed. That night, while he lay asleep, she quietly entered his room and cast a spell through a kiss on his forehead. She sealed away the ancient magic inside his mind. She didn't want him to rely too heavily on power. To keep him on a safer path, she recommended he become a white mage, someone who supports other adventurers rather than fights directly. She began teaching him recovery magic, showing how it could help ripen fruit. To emphasize the difference in their strength, she casually revived a dying tree. Merlin continued teaching him various forms of magic, but whenever ancient spells came up, she told him it wasn't necessary to learn them. She said those spells had been lost to history hundreds of years ago. As more time passed, Merlin eventually blindfolded Loid and led him deep into a monster-filled forest. She handed him a single knife and instructed him to return home within a week, using only his magic. Without giving him a chance to protest, she disappeared into the woods, leaving him confused and frightened. Soon after, a wolf monster appeared, forcing Loid to climb a tree to escape its attacks. Realizing that his white mage spells were ineffective in combat, he decided his best option was to navigate his way home while avoiding danger. Using his magical senses, he located the direction of their house and began the long walk back. Along the way, he used magic to ripen fruits for sustenance and experimented at night with new spells that could help protect him. He pushed himself to discover magic that allowed him to run faster and find food more easily. The next day, a giant spider monster nearly caught him, but thanks to his newly developed speed spell, he managed to escape. He kept the spell active until he finally reached his home, where he collapsed from sheer exhaustion right outside the door. Years passed, and Loid grew into a teenager. One day, he stumbled across a magazine about the nearby city. he grew curious about the outside world. Merlin's approach had changed by then. She no longer dragged him to practice magic. Instead, she interrupted his daily chores to brainstorm and test new magical theories. Her ideas came at odd times, often forcing Loid to stay up for several nights in a row, helping her bring them to life. Unable to bear the constant pressure, Loid eventually decided to run away and explore the world. The next morning, Merlin found his room empty, with only the magazine left behind. She immediately realized that her little boy had entered his rebellious phase. Meanwhile, Loid arrived in the city and became swept up in its energy. After spending his limited money on food, he began to wonder how to earn more. At that moment, a recruitment notice for an adventuring party blew right into his face. Unaware that someone was observing him, he decided to try his hand at becoming an adventurer. His first mission with the new party involved fighting a Cyclops. Loid was thrilled, as he had never seen anyone face such a strong monster before. The Cyclops was overpowering Alan, the leader and main attacker of the group, prompting him to call for a healing spell. Loid immediately cast a support spell over all his party members, though none of them even noticed. The archer managed to shoot an arrow into the Cyclops' eye, blinding it. As the creature lashed out the party's tank, Rena stepped in to block the blow. She was surprised to feel barely any force behind the punch. Meanwhile, the party's mage bound the monster with magic, and Alan seized the chance to deliver a finishing blow. Thanks to this, Alan became a celebrated hero overnight. However, Loid received only a few coins for his contribution, being considered a mere D-rank white mage. Believing that he wasn't worth more, he accepted the payment quietly. When Alan suggested they celebrate with a toast, Loid excused himself, explaining that he didn't drink. The girls in the party were irritated by his refusal, but Alan didn't mind. He didn't see Loid as a true member of their group. In his eyes, all white mages were useless, included only to fulfill guild requirements. It made no difference who filled that role. However, Rena had begun to notice that something about Loid seemed unusual, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. Elsewhere, the man who had been watching Loid revealed himself to be Merlin's informant. He regularly provided updates about her student. Merlin remarked that she wasn't worried about Loid, so long as he didn't grow too arrogant. The informant then asked if she regretted what happened in the past. Biting her lip, Merlin remembered the day she fought the Demon Lord alongside Hero Sybil and their party. Unable to defeat them, the Demon Lord had self-destructed, destroying an entire city. Sybil had used ancient magic to revive all the lives lost in the blast, sacrificing his own life in the process. His death had devastated Merlin. Though she originally adopted Loid to cope with the loss, she never imagined he might also be a chosen one like Sybil. She vowed never to repeat her past mistakes and swore to do whatever it took to protect Loid. Back in the city, Alan continued to rise in fame by slaying powerful monsters, all thanks to Loid's unnoticed support. Rena remained the only one with even a faint idea of what was really happening. One night, Alan received a request from the soldiers to eliminate golems that had been killing troops near a patrol point. He eagerly accepted the mission, expecting an easy fight. The party reached the patrol area, and Loid used his magical sensing to discover that the golems were located behind a waterfall. Inside, Alan fought the golems, but a hidden summoner kept creating more. Loid noticed that the summoner was using a magic stone to power the spell. He quickly buffed the archer, instructing her to shoot the enemy. She followed his guidance, and her arrow curved perfectly around a pillar to strike the summoner in the chest. Loid then ordered the party's wizard to teleport the staff to him, which he immediately sealed. Alan was irritated by Loid's commands, believing only he had the right to lead the party. He focused on attacking the golem, despite Loid's warning that it had gone berserk after losing its master. Alan ignored him and charged in. Forced to act, Loid used a special spell to reach Alan and save him from being crushed. Alan grew furious, but the golem shut down soon after, giving him the chance to destroy it. As soon as the mission ended, Alan fired Loid, accusing him of being useless and cowardly for always staying in the back. Having been gaslighted into doubting his own abilities, Loid accepted the decision without protest. He attempted to join another party but found no available openings and became disheartened. Fortunately, a girl happened to be urgently looking for a white mage. The receptionist explained that it would be difficult to find someone who met her conditions. With no better option, the receptionist pointed toward Loid. The moment the pink-haired girl confirmed that he was an unemployed white mage, she grabbed him and dragged him away. It turned out that the pink-haired girl, Yui, was a member of an S-rank adventurer party. Recently, her team had gone out to hunt down a group of bandits. Their superior strength and excellent teamwork allowed them to swiftly defeat the enemies, cornering even the bandit boss and ordering him to surrender. However, the boss revealed his secret move, summoning a giant stone golem to fight them. Yui's party quickly realized that the golem was resistant to magic. Their weak physical attacks were ineffective. Recognizing the threat, Yui, being the strongest damage dealer in the group, stepped forward to face it herself. She dashed toward the golem and struck it with full force, but her attack left only a small scratch on its stone body. Forced to retreat and dodge the golem Sep's counterattack, she called out to their party's white mage, asking for a strength buff. The white mage, Clum, seemed momentarily lost in thought and took a second to register Yui's request. Fortunately, she managed to cast a spell that enhanced Yui's strength and timing, allowing her to defeat the golem with her next blow. After arresting the bandits, Yui approached Clum, who apologized for spacing out during the battle, admitting it could have cost Yui her life. Yui reassured her not to worry about it, saying she understood Clum was going through personal struggles. When asked about her home situation, Clum suddenly handed Yui her resignation, explaining that she needed to take a break to care for her ailing sister. This led to the present moment, where Yui eagerly grabbed Loid's hand and dragged him to her base. Her party members were left speechless as they watched her bring someone in, surprised that she actually found a white mage, as they were convinced she would fail. Yui introduced Loid to everyone, even though she didn't yet know his name. She then introduced her team Dagas, the shield user, Cross, the archer, and Silica, the mage. Finally, she introduced herself as the swordsman and leader of the party, officially welcoming Loid to the group. Loid asked when he ever agreed to join, and Yui was startled, realizing she hadn't even asked him. Dagas and Silica quickly caught on to what had happened and apologized to Loid for dragging him in without any explanation. They then turned to Yui, pointing out that even if she had found a white mage, he couldn't replace Clum, and they should abandon their current quest. Yui was upset to hear that, reminding them that their client had requested their help and they couldn't just back out. Loid asked why they didn't let another party handle it, and Dagas explained that it was an A-rank quest. Only A-rank and above parties could accept such missions, and currently all A-rank parties were out of town. Since they were the only S-rank party available, they had to take it. Loid was shocked to realize he was standing in front of S-rank adventurers. He genuinely wanted to help. However, his low self-esteem made him believe he wasn't strong enough to be useful. Suddenly, Yui spoke up for him, insisting that they give Loid a chance to prove himself before dismissing him. She took him into the woods to demonstrate his skills. Loid was nervous, fearing that he would let everyone down. Yui kept urging him to do something, and Dagas pointed out that she should at least explain what kind of spell he was supposed to cast. Yui asked Loid to enchant all of them, but Cross and Silica doubted it would work, since casting multiple enchantments was a difficult feat for even skilled white mages. Loid, surprised by the simplicity of the test, asked if she was sure this was all he needed to do to join the party. She affirmed it. The others reassured him that he didn't need to push himself if he couldn't do it, but Loid declared that he would try. He summoned his staff from dimensional storage, surprising everyone, and then cast 5 different enchantment spells on the entire party so quickly that no one noticed. Yui asked where he had pulled the staff from, and he explained it came from a storage spell he could use. He asked if the enchantments were satisfactory, and Yui was confused by how fast he had performed them, since such spells usually required more time and incantations. Everyone began feeling stronger and lighter. To test the effect, Yui swung her sword at a large tree, slicing through it cleanly with a gentle motion. The entire party was stunned. Loid explained that he had cast 5 enchantments because he felt that casting only one spell on all of them was too basic, and he wanted to show his real capability. The others were too shocked to respond, while Loid assumed they were disappointed. He returned his staff to storage and apologized, saying he understood he wasn't fit to be their white mage. Just as he began to leave, Yui stopped him and finally asked about his past experience. Loid revealed that he had been fired from the hero's party for being too weak. The party couldn't comprehend what kind of absurd standards the hero must have had, considering Loid's incredible performance. When Loid still insisted that he was weak, Cross began to worry about what Loid considered strong. Loid changed the subject, asking why they didn't just call Clum back. Yui explained that Clum-Sip's sister was seriously ill, and Clum had been looking after her while still working as an adventurer, which had taken a toll on her. Eventually, she couldn't manage both responsibilities and decided to take a break. Daga said they could handle most quests without her, but A-rank missions were too difficult, and they needed a white mage. Everyone began to grow concerned for Clum, still considering her a friend. Loid felt a pang of jealousy upon hearing that. He quickly asked if anyone knew what disease Clum's sister had. Yui recalled that her body was gradually turning into magistone. Loid remembered learning about that from his master Merlin, who had taught him that magistones could convert living creatures into magistone as well. Loid had once wondered whether such a transformation could be reversed, and now decided to test that theory. He asked Yui to lead him to Clum's house, and she agreed. A weary and thin Clum opened the door, surprised to see her visitors. Once inside, Loid got straight to work, asking Clum to describe her sister's symptoms. Clum explained that she and her sister Sylvie had once adventured together, but Sylvie had been injured during a mission and had been ill ever since. Loid requested to see the symptoms directly. Clum opened the door to Sylvie's room and a wave of malicious mana poured out. She pulled back the blanket, revealing that Sylvie's limbs had turned to magistone. Clum explained that Sylvie's mana had gone berserk and her condition kept deteriorating. Clum feared her sister had little time left and Loid asked to help. He stated his theory that Sylvie could return to normal. Clum doubted him, as even expert healers had declared it impossible. Loid explained that Sylvie might have been injured by a high-purity magistone, initiating the transformation. He asked if she had been hurt in a high mana density location. Clum confirmed they had been on a mission to extract a magistone from a cave. Loid requested to see the entry wound, and when Clum showed her sister's waist, which had turned to magistone, he was convinced it was the source. Clum asked how he knew all that, and he replied that his master had taught him. Yui asked Clum to trust Loid, and Clum agreed to give him a chance. Loid immediately cast a spell to absorb the corrupted mana from Sylvie's body, which proved difficult but manageable. He explained that reducing Sylvie's Sit's mana to near zero was necessary before healing her. As he continued absorbing the mana, he cast another, more powerful and inefficient healing spell that burned away the excess mana. Clum was stunned, and Yui asked if Loid was doing something extraordinary. Clum confirmed it, saying he was casting 2 original spells simultaneously, while enduring a massive amount of mana, something even the best white mages couldn't do. Soon, Sylvie's petrified body began returning to normal. She regained consciousness, and Clum burst into tears of joy. Later, Clum told Yui and Loid that once her sister recovered, they would go adventuring again, and she wanted Loid to support her party in her place. Loid protested, saying he wasn't qualified, but Clum simply asked him to follow his heart. That night, Yui and the others held a party to celebrate Sylvie's recovery and thanked Loid, who still doubted his worthiness. But he was moved by how warmly everyone treated him despite having just met him. He nervously asked to join the party, admitting his lack of strength. The others were pleasantly surprised and welcomed him warmly. They even hosted a welcome party and told him to eat as much as he wanted since they were covering the bill. Loid ate like he'd never seen food before, amusing his new teammates. They asked if he was starving, and he replied that the food in this town was amazing. This shocked them as the food was quite average. Loid explained that, compared to what he had eaten growing up, wild mushrooms, plain roasted beast meat without seasoning, it was a feast. He said his teacher cooked whatever she grew in her garden, and because of that, He learned to cook himself but never came close to this level. Yui grew more curious about his teacher than the food. When she asked about the person who taught him magic, the others also joined in. Silica asked if she was a white mage, but Loid said she was more of a combat mage, often causing explosions while training alone. Silica was amazed that someone not specialized in white magic could train Loid so well. He agreed, saying Merlin was incredible. When Silica expressed interest in learning from her, Loid warned that she'd regret that wish once she knew the truth. After some more discussion about Merlin, the team held a strategy meeting. Yui asked Dagas to explain the mission to Loid, admitting she was bad at presentations. Dagas explained that their mission was to defeat monsters destroying local farms, and Silica added that several monster species had formed a pack. Loid found this unusual, and Dagas confirmed that it was new for them as well, but they had to take it seriously. Cross remarked that facing such numbers would be hard for physical attackers like himself and Yui. She agreed, saying Silica would need to carry them with wide-area spells. But Silica was nervous because such spells consumed too much mana. Yui asked Loid if he could use attack magic, and he replied that he only knew basic spells which weren't very effective. Dagas then outlined the strategy. He and Yui would gather the monsters into one place for Silica's attack. Cross would protect Silica and Loid, who would focus on healing and support. Everyone then headed to the inn to rest. But Loid walked in the opposite direction. Dagas asked where he was going, and Loid nervously admitted he couldn't afford a room. Dagas gave him a pouch filled with more money than Loid had ever seen, saying it wasn't charity, it would be deducted from his salary. Loid gratefully accepted and promised to repay it through hard work. The next morning, everyone gathered at the inn, with Yui being the last to arrive. She asked where everyone's luggage was, and they excitedly told her that Loid had stored it using his magic. She quickly gave her own bags to him, and he stored them as well. Yui and Silica marveled at his skill, but Loid offered to teach them. They were shocked, as no one else had ever used that magic before. He assured them it was simple, though increasing the capacity required training. With that, they set out on their mission. Along the way, Loid learned how enjoyable long quests could be. They reached their first campsite much earlier than expected thanks to not carrying heavy loads. Loid unloaded the supplies so they could set up tents. Yui wanted to play in the river, but Dagas reminded her that they still needed to gather firewood and food. Loid volunteered to collect firewood, and Yui gratefully pulled Silica away to bathe. While collecting sticks, Loid spotted fruits he used to eat in his childhood and picked a few for his team. Then he heard Yui screaming. He rushed toward the sound and found a giant serpent attacking the defenseless girls. He attacked the serpent to divert its attention, while Yui and Silica rushed to shore and covered themselves. Loid tossed their weapons to them and cast 2 enchantments instantly. Yui charged in and sliced the serpent in half. The severed head still attacked, and Silica told them to move as she fired a powerful fireball to finish it off. She was surprised by her strength, unaware it came from Loid Sepp's buff. Yui thanked him for saving them and asked him to store her sword. Just before her towel slipped off, both freaked out and Loid got slapped. Back at the campsite, Loid began teaching the party how to use storage magic. He told them to open a space using their palms, but they didn't understand. Silica encouraged them to try, and they awkwardly attempted it. Loid began doubting his teaching ability, but then Silica chanted storage and managed to open a space. Everyone realized they couldn't cast spells without chants like Loid could, but they could still learn. Silica managed to store her staff after practice, though the others struggled. That night, while others slept, Loid and Yui were on watch. She thanked him for joining, and he replied that he was jobless anyway. Curious about her determination to take the quest, he asked if there was a reason. Yui shared that her village was once destroyed by monsters, and she had been the sole survivor. That memory drove her to accept this mission to protect others from the same fate. Suddenly, Loid told her to be quiet. Monsters were near. Yui readied her sword and went to wake the others. They realized they were surrounded by spider monsters and considered retreating. As they moved back, Yui stepped on a twig, alerting the spiders. The creatures surrounded them and began firing webs. The adventurers blocked the first wave, but one spider stole Silica's staff. Trapped in a silk cage, everyone panicked. Loid said they needed to stop the spiders first. He enchanted his teammates, and Yui leapt up, slicing through the web. Cross returned Silica's staff, and Yui cut down 2 spiders using their silk sprays to travel. Loid instructed Silica and Cross to attack. Silica created fireballs, and Cross shot arrows through them, igniting the spiders. The battle ended, and Loid realized he had been giving orders despite being new. He apologized, but Dagus praised him as a natural-born leader. The others agreed, asking him to continue leading in battle. The next morning, everyone had learned storage magic well enough to carry their own luggage. As they resumed their journey, Loid pondered why the spider monsters had appeared. A couple of days later, while Loid was keeping watch alone at night, he found himself thinking about the spider monsters again. He believed they should have inspected them more thoroughly when suddenly Yui and Silica called out his name, asking if he planned to stay on guard alone again that night. Loid affirmed, and the girls grew concerned about him since he had been pulling all-nighters for quite a while. They told him he should rotate the night shift with the others, but Loid assured them he would be fine. He explained that he wanted everyone else to conserve their stamina in case a fight broke out. Yui was about to give him a lecture, but Silica stopped her, asking her to respect Loid's decision. She also asked Loid to inform them if things became too difficult for him. Meanwhile, Cross and Dagus quietly watched the scene unfold from their tent, worried about Loid's stubbornness. The next day, the party resumed their journey, and while they were taking a break, Loid tried detecting any monsters nearby. He was relieved to sense none, but Yui came running up, asking what he was doing. He explained the search magic that allowed him to locate monsters and other threats, which surprised Yui since she had never heard of that spell before. Loid told her that its range wasn't very wide, but it was still better than nothing. Yui expressed concern that he was shouldering all the responsibility of watching their surroundings, but Loid told her he was fine and did not need help. That night, as Loid kept watch once again, Yui commented that it seemed like he did not trust them at all, even though they were friends now. Silica replied that everyone had their own pace for getting comfortable with others and that Loid probably had some past trauma that made him distance himself. She also believed there was a reason Loid could not see how amazing he was, and that's why he worked so hard to compensate for it. Yui grew curious about Loid's past, but Silica said he would tell them everything once he felt comfortable enough. Meanwhile, Dagus approached Loid and asked him to come along to help with something, while Cross volunteered to take over the night watch in his place. Loid followed Dagus, who had set up an elaborate trip alarm designed to alert them if any monsters approached the campsite. Loid was impressed, and Dagus explained that the alarm would take care of the detection, so Loid should get some rest. Loid said there was no need and that he could do a better job than the alarm. Dagus suddenly confronted him, asking whether he did not trust the party. Loid replied that he did trust them, but Dagus pointed out that his actions suggested otherwise. Loid then recalled the words of Merlin and his former boss, both of whom had called him inexperienced and useless. He explained to Dagus that he feared causing problems for others if he didn't work hard enough. But Dagus confidently told him to go ahead and cause problems. Loid did not understand what he meant, so Dagus explained that they had formed a party precisely to handle things together, things they could not deal with alone. He said it was natural for everyone to cause problems from time to time and encouraged Loid to rely more on his team. That was the first time Loid had heard such a concept, and Dagus managed to convince him to get some rest. Inside the tent, Loid smiled to himself, thinking about how he now had people he could rely on. The next morning, he put that concept into practice and nervously asked Yui if she could help him fetch some water. She was happy to assist him. Elsewhere, a noble named Michelle received a report from a shady black mage who told him that he had planted magic stones in all the designated locations. Michelle was pleased to hear this, believing they could now succeed in their plan without much difficulty. The mage added that their previous schemes had scattered the high-ranking adventurer parties, meaning they would not be able to interfere. However, he warned that the heroes party was still active and could pose a problem. Michelle replied that they could not do anything about that, since the hero's party only moved under the king's orders. Still, he believed the hero alone would not be enough to stop what was coming next. Back in the forest, Loid and his party found it odd that there were no monsters nearby. Loid decided to widen the range of his search spell and detected a group of monsters 10 kilometers ahead. Cross remarked that the group was quite close to the farmlands they were heading toward. Before Loid could elaborate, Yui jumped in, asking if he could really search within a 10-kilometer radius. Loid confirmed, and Yui grew furious because he had previously told her the range wasn't that big. Loid replied that 10 kilometers was not that big, and Yui began shouting at him. The rest of the party quickly reminded her to focus on the more pressing problem. They rushed toward the location and found the monsters had already reached the farmlands they were supposed to protect. They were shocked by the size of the wolf monster pack, but Loid was more concerned because it was the only place he could detect monsters. He wondered where the others had gone. The rest of the party also found it strange, since monsters did not typically leave their territories. While they speculated about the reason, Cross spotted something unusual in the middle of the wolf pack. The others could not see it due to their less sharp eyesight, so Loid used a spell to grant himself telescopic vision. With it, he was able to see a strange black rock in the center of the pack. He then cast the same spell on the others, allowing them to see it too. Dagus commented that it resembled a magistone, and Silica noted the black aura surrounding it was troubling. Loid said the aura was mana being released and realized it felt familiar, like the mana of beast folk. He remembered Merlin once mentioning that beast folk possessed a special spell that allowed them to control monsters, and the Magistone appeared to be doing just that. Loid immediately used his search spell again and detected another large group of monsters heading toward them. He now understood the Magistone was the source of the problem, but still couldn't figure out the reason behind it. The party considered escaping, but Yui objected, saying the monsters would destroy the fields if they left. Dagus agreed that escape wouldn't be easy either, but Silica didn't think they could win the fight. Suddenly, Loid declared that they should fight, and he was confident they could win if they followed his plan. He said they needed to destroy the Magistone first and asked Cross if he could shoot it. Cross was unsure he could break it from that distance, but Loid told him it was fine as long as he could hit it. Cross took aim, and Loid placed 3 enchantments on Cross, his bow and his arrows. As a result, the arrow successfully shattered the Magistone. Cross asked how he did it, and Loid casually replied that he enchanted all 3, which he considered standard for someone like him. The others were shocked, since normal white mages couldn't enchant both people and weapons at the same time. Just then, they noticed the wolves beginning to fight each other. With the Magistone destroyed, their natural instincts returned. Loid had anticipated this and declared that the first part of his plan had worked. Unfortunately, the incoming horde of monsters had not stopped. Soon, the monster horde emerged from the forest. Silica stepped forward alone to confront them. As the monsters closed in, Loid waited until the last moment before giving her the command to attack. She instantly unleashed a fire tornado that wiped out all the approaching monsters, stunning everyone with her firepower. Loid asked Silica to continue using wind and fire magic to hold them back, and then he ran to Cross. Because the fire had created thick smoke, the flying monsters were both blinded and hidden. Loid connected his senses to Cross using telepathy and relayed their positions using his search skill. Cross, now aware of the targets, shot them down with perfect accuracy. Loid then rushed back to Silica for the final part of the plan, but she informed him that she was out of mana. That posed no problem for Loid, who became a walking mana battery and transferred energy to her. The sudden transfer caused him to collapse, but he told her not to worry and instructed her to cast a spell to make it rain. Silica followed his instructions, and the rain quickly extinguished the forest fire, preventing it from spreading out of control. She also ran out of mana and collapsed, but Dagus caught her. Yui praised her and said she and Dagus would handle the remaining monsters. As they rushed off to finish the job, Silica and Loid rested. Suddenly, Loid collapsed to the ground, saying he needed to work harder because he shouldn't be exhausted after doing so little. Shortly afterward, Yui and the others dealt with the remaining threats. When they returned to check on Loid, he told them they needed to head to the nearby city. His instincts told him that the farmlands had been a decoy, and the real target was the city. Everyone was confused by the situation, and Loid pulled out a crate of mana potions from his storage dimension. He drank one while explaining that the entire mission had been a trap designed to lure high-ranking adventurers away from Ishtar, thereby weakening its defenses. Cross commented that Ishtar still had the Heroes Party and the Night Order, so taking down its defenses wouldn't be easy. However, Dajist believed Loid's theory made sense. Yui decided to head back to Ishtar immediately, just in case, and Loid cast a buff on the entire party as he finished his mana potion. He then told Yui they should start moving and began running toward the city. Everyone was shocked by his speed, but as Yui tried to catch up to him, she realized she could now run faster than even her previous limits. The rest of the group followed, and they were not really surprised when Loid revealed that he had boosted their speed to help them reach the city quickly. Meanwhile, Michelle was working on paperwork in his mansion when the demon General Grist suddenly appeared, informing him that the army was ready for action. Michelle was pleased to hear this, and the two discussed how easily they had managed to send an army to Ishtar without drawing attention, thanks to the powers of a kidnapped beastfolk girl. Michelle said they would continue using her powers for their benefit, and Grist left that matter to him. On the other side, Loid and the others were rushing toward Ishtar and paused briefly to catch their breath. They were confident they would reach the city quickly at this pace, but Silica expressed concern that Loid might be getting tired, as maintaining enchantment magic was extremely taxing. Loid responded that it was hard only for those not used to it, but his teacher had forced him to use it frequently, making him develop the habit of casting enchantment spells for extended periods. He recalled how Merlin had once thrown him into a forest, and since he could not defeat the monster, had simply run from them. That had forced him to develop new and more efficient speed-enhancing spells. He admitted that the training had been hellish, and since Merlin often scolded him for struggling, he assumed he must have simply been bad at it. He believed such training methods were normal, but Silica and Huey told him otherwise. Loid, however, mistakenly thought that his training had been softer than standard methods and resolved to train even harder. The girls didn't even try to correct him, realizing how wrong his assumptions were. Dajist and the others, now refreshed, prepared to resume the journey. Loid cast the speed buff on them again, and also used his search magic to ensure there were no monsters nearby. They continued on, but Loid suddenly came to a stop, causing everyone to crash into him. When asked what was wrong, he explained that his search skill had detected something strange, neither human nor monster. Feeling uneasy about it, he told the others to continue ahead while he investigated. However, Yui pointed out that if it turned out to be something dangerous, he would need their help. He agreed with that, and they proceeded together. Soon they reached a hut, and Loid became certain that demons were inside. The party was shocked, knowing that demons were supposed to be beyond the mountains and should not be here. Loid stated that demons were banned from entering human territory, but the others reminded him that the ban had been repeatedly ignored in recent years as demons continued to attack humans. They questioned why he acted as if he did not know this, and Loid admitted he had no memories of his childhood, having been adopted right after the war ended. Everyone grew concerned that they might have triggered painful memories, but Loid assured them he was fine. Cross emphasized that they needed to return to the city and report the demon presence to the knights immediately, but Loid suggested gathering more information first. He mentioned sensing the same energy from the demons that they had felt from the Black Magistone, which made everyone more alert. Loid believed that if the demons were planning to attack Ishtar, then their investigation was even more critical. Yui agreed, noting that doing nothing could place the city in grave danger, and the rest of the party supported her. As they approached the house, they found no one inside. Loid used his search skill again and discovered that the demons were actually underground. They just suggested looking for an entrance, but Loid decided to skip that and asked Silica to use earth magic. Before she acted, he strengthened everyone with buffs. Silica then created a sand pit in front of them, collapsing the roof of the underground tunnel and catching the demons mid-ritual. The demons scattered to avoid the falling debris, and Huey immediately leapt in and grabbed one by the throat. She questioned what demons were doing on this side of the continent, when suddenly another demon used magic to hurl debris at her. Yui blocked it effortlessly and cross-shot another demon, though one managed to escape. The demons tried hiding behind rubble, but Silica turned the rocks into sand, exposing them. When they attempted to attack her, they just blocked the assault, forcing them to retreat. One demon escaped the room, and when Yui tried to follow, she found the door wouldn't open. Two more demons tried to ambush her, but cross-pinned their robes to the ground, allowing Yui to easily take them down. Having defeated 3 demons, they rushed to capture the last one, who had imprisoned the beast girl in a cocoon and fled with her. Loid and the others arrived just then and immediately decided to pursue him. Yui and Cross reached the demon first and prepared to trap him from both sides, while Loid and the rest climbed back to the surface. Loid sensed a powerful magic signal from the cocoon and told his friends that it needed to be captured at all costs. Soon, Yui cut off the demon's path, and he realized he was surrounded. Loid told him to surrender so they could ask him some questions, but the demon chose to fight. He created a magic circle to launch an attack, but Loid quickly responded by forming shields in front of his allies. The spell rebounded off the shields and struck the demon instead. As the demon fell, Loid rushed over and brought down the cocoon to free the beast girl inside. They returned to the cottage, and Loid decided to heal her, believing she was the only one who might offer useful information now that the demons were dead. Yui and Silica were impressed by the speed of Loid's healing spell, and he explained that he had modified it. This shocked them because altering spells wasn't easy, but Loid said that his teacher had often made him assist in creating new spells, so this kind of work was nothing unusual for him. When asked again about his master, he simply described her as a weirdo. At that moment, the beast girl regained consciousness, and Yui immediately jumped on top of her, bombarding her with questions. The girl nervously revealed her name was Claire, but Yui misheard it and chose to stick with whatever she thought she heard. Yui asked why the demons had captured her, and Claire hesitated to answer. Loid reassured her that they were adventurers who had come to rescue her. He mentioned having heard that some beast folk could use magic to control monsters and asked if she had been the one responsible for controlling the monsters in the farms they had visited. Claire confirmed that it had been her magic, explaining that the demons had forced her to do it. Now, understanding the situation, Loid and the others concluded that the demons planned to use monsters to attack Ishtar, the gateway to the continent. They decided to return immediately to defend the city and took Claire with them. As they paused for a break, Loid sensed a massive wave of monsters heading toward the city, followed by an even larger army. Realizing they couldn't fight them all alone, he made a quick decision. He told Yui and the others to rush to the city and warn the knights while he stayed behind with Claire to use her powers to try and stop the monsters, but that was where the video ended. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.